Hey, welcome to the deep dive.
Hey there.
Today we're jumping straight into a really unusual case. Pretty shocking, actually, out of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I saw this one. It's quite something.
We're going to unpack the conviction of a magistrate judge for attempted homicide.
A sitting judge. It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it?
It does. How does someone who's, part of the justice system end up accused of something like this?
Exactly. And not just accused, but convicted.
Mm.
It raises big questions, I think, about power, relationships, maybe the system itself.
Absolutely. So let's set the scene a bit. The judge is Sonya McKnight, a magistrate in Dauphin County,
Right.
and she was convicted of attempted homicide and aggravated assault.
And the victim was her ex-boyfriend, Michael McCoy.
Yeah, the accusation is that she shot him in the head while he was sleeping.
Just horrific. And this was at his home.
At his home, yes. Apparently she'd been living there, they broke up, he asked her to leave.
Oh, okay.
And this happened back on February 10th, 2024. So over a year ago now.
Right. And the conviction is more recent.
Exactly. The CBS News report we looked at detailed the trial outcome. She was taken away in handcuffs right after the verdict, asked for release, but that was denied.
Not surprising, given the charges. Attempted homicide.
Serious stuff, and the potential sentence is huge, up to 60 years. Sentencing is set for May 28th.
Wow. 60 years. Okay.
So let's talk about the victim's side. McCoy's testimony seems absolutely crucial here.
It would have to be, wouldn't it? Especially if he was the only other person there, essentially.
He testified about the last thing he remembers her saying before the shot. It was, oh, so you're serious?
And that was apparently referring to him asking her to move out.
That's what the prosecution argued, yes. That it showed her state of mind, her reaction to the breakup ending definitively.
And then he was shot.
Then shot. He
Yeah.
said he couldn't see afterwards, was blinded by it.
Terrible. And he testified she was the only other person home.
Yes, that was a key point. He couldn't physically see who shot him in that moment because, well, he'd just been shot in the head.
Right, of course.
But he was clear she was the only one there. His first thought, he said, was, I thought I was having a brain aneurysm.
Wow. Just trying to process what happened.
Yeah.
Understandable. So his testimony points directly at her, even without visual confirmation of the act itself.
Pretty much. And that seems to be the core of the legal arguments.
Makes sense. The prosecution saying, look, she had motive jealousy, resentment about being asked to leave, and she was the only one there.
Right. Well, the defense was likely arguing, well, he can't say he saw her pull the trigger, trying to create that reasonable doubt.
A classic defense strategy in cases where the victim survives, but maybe didn't see everything clearly.
Yeah, but her alleged last words. That's pretty powerful context for the jury, I'd imagine.
Definitely adds weight to the prosecution's narrative about her motive and intent.
There was also testimony from a doctor, right? Dr. Stephen Allen.
Yes, he treated McCoy, talked about the bullet's trajectory.
And how close it was to being fatal.
Exactly. He apparently testified that a very slight difference in the angle could have killed McCoy.
Which really underscores the seriousness of the attempted homicide charge. It wasn't just, an argument that got out of hand with a weapon involved. It was potentially lethal force.
Absolutely. That medical testimony would be vital for proving the intent required for attempted homicide, not just aggravated assault. It shows the act itself was incredibly dangerous, life-threatening.
Okay, let's talk about the jury. This was kind of interesting. They weren't local.
Oh, where were they from?
Delaware County. They were apparently bussed into Harrisburg for the trial.
Huh. To avoid potential bias, I assume, given she was a local judge.
Probably. Makes sense. And they didn't take long to decide.
How long did they deliberate?
About 2 hours, according to the report.
2 hours. For attempted murder. That's fast.
It seems fast, yeah. Guilty on both counts.
Suggests they found the prosecution's case, including McCoy's testimony and maybe that medical evidence, pretty compelling.
Seems likely. Now, there's another layer to this whole thing. McKnight's history.
Ah, okay. Was this completely out of the blue for her?
Not entirely, it seems. She'd been elected back in 2016, but she was actually already suspended before this shooting happened.
Suspended from her judicial position. When?
Since mid-November 2023, so a few months before the February 2024 shooting. Suspended without pay.
Why was she suspended then?
It stemmed from allegations of misconduct filed by the Judicial Conduct Board, something to do with a 2020 traffic stop involving her son.
Okay, so prior conduct issues were already known.
Yes, and apparently she was accused of violating judicial probation related to that earlier misconduct case. Though, it's worth noting she was acquitted of actual criminal charges in that 2020 matter.
So a misconduct finding, suspension, probation violation, allegation,
Hmm.
but acquitted criminally back then. A bit complicated.
Yeah, a mixed history there, but it shows she was already under scrutiny by the judicial authorities before this attempted homicide charge even surfaced.
That context is, well, it's significant, isn't it? It paints a picture of someone already facing professional consequences.
It does. It makes you wonder about oversight and, the standards for judges.
Definitely raises questions about the process for judicial conduct and discipline.
And there's one more thing. Another incident involving a firearm.
Seriously, another one.
Yeah. Back in 2019, she shot her estranged husband.
Shot her husband, too.
Yes. Apparently, she'd invited him over to help move furniture. An argument happened, and she shot him.
Okay. What happened legally in that case?
Prosecutors declined to file charges. They cited self-defense.
Self-defense, okay. So that incident was investigated and determined to be justified, legally speaking.
Correct. But the contrast is stark, isn't it? A 2019 shooting ruled self-defense. A 2024 shooting resulting in an attempted homicide conviction.
Very stark.
Ah.
It highlights how different the circumstances, the evidence, or perhaps the perceived threat level must have been in each case.
Or maybe how perspectives changed over time. It's hard to say without all the details of the first case.
True, but having two separate shooting incidents involving intimate partners, that's quite a pattern, especially for a judge.
It really is quite remarkable and concerning.
Yeah, concerning feels like an understatement when you put it all together.
So let's try and sum this up. We have Sonya McKnight, a magistrate judge in Pennsylvania,
Elected in 2016.
already suspended for unrelated judicial misconduct issues from late 2023.
Right, stemming from that 2020 incident with her son.
Then, in February 2024, she shoots her ex-boyfriend, Michael McCoy, in the head while he sleeps, allegedly after he asked her to move out of his house.
He survives, testifies against her, saying she was the only one there and mentioning her last words to him.
Medical evidence shows it was a near-fatal shot.
A jury from another county convicts her of attempted homicide and aggravated assault after just 2 hours of deliberation.
And we know she was involved in a previous shooting in 2019 with her husband, which was ruled self-defense at the time.
And now she faces potentially decades in prison, with sentencing coming up soon.
It's an incredible sequence of events, a real fall from a position of power.
It truly is. And it forces you to think, doesn't it?
What? What are
Yeah.
the big takeaways here?
Well, just considering everything, the violence, the position she held, the previous incidents, the misconduct, what does it all suggest about, I don't know, human behavior under pressure, or maybe the pressures of power?
Yeah, and what about trust? Trust in the people who are supposed to uphold the law. When something like this happens, what does it do to public confidence in the judiciary?
That's a huge question. How does the system handle situations where one of its own is accused of such a fundamental violation? And does the public believe justice is truly being served, even when the accused is a judge?
Definitely a lot to think about. A very sobering case.
Indeed. Something that probably stays with you long after you hear about it.